Hello and welcome to the Professional Book Nerds podcast. This is Joe. Welcome. Remember to rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you do your listening. And make sure you follow us on Instagram at ProBookNerds. My guests today are the hosts of one of my all-time favorite podcasts, and That's Why We Drink. I am so excited. And That's Why We Drink is hosted by M. Schulz and Christine Schiefer. ATWWD is an award-winning comedy podcast where the paranormal and true crime meet. Launched in February of 2017, each new episode is a deep dive into whatever stories the hosts are obsessing over that week. The podcast has over 200 million lifetime downloads and is consistently ranked in the top 20 on the podcast comedy charts. In May of 2022, Christine and Em released their first book together called A Haunted Road Atlas, which debuted on the New York Times bestsellers list. The book is an interactive guide through the hosts' favorite spooky and sinister sites throughout the US and is jam-packed with illustrations, fun facts, travel tips, and included some of the country's most notorious crime scenes, hauntings, and supernatural sightings. Here to talk about their new book, A Haunted Road Atlas, Next Stop, out September 24th from Andrews McMeel, it's Em and Christine. We'll give them a big welcome. And here we go. Let's dive into it. Well, hello, Em, Christine, welcome.
Hello. The way you said hello sounds like we just entered into the room like, oh, hello.
Like we haven't been here talking.
Yeah.
I know, but it also felt like we were walking a red carpet. That was very nice. It was like, oh, hello. Oh, like I should do a Queen's wave.
Who do we have here? Yes, we're happy to be here, Joe. Thank you for having us.
Oh, so happy to have you. I've already, sold myself out very quickly to both of you that I am a huge fan, and I've told the listeners that I've been eagerly awaiting this. But to start us off, would you both like to tell me about the Haunted Road Atlases? Because now there's two of them.
Oh, I've never said it in plural, though. That's
Atlas. I don't know. We've got two of them. One is a Haunted Road Atlas, and our new one is a Haunted Road Atlas, Next Stop. And basically we have compiled a series of towns for if you happen to be driving through and you want to know what the spooky things in the area are. You can flip through our book and see what kind of stops are along the way, what kind of ghost tours there are, what kind of weird oddity shops. But then also to keep with the And That's Why We Drink theme, we have bar recommendations. We have ice cream suggestions. I mean, we've got a little bit of everything in there for you, as well as bite-sized stories where we highlight a true crime and a paranormal
we always
story.
talk about the fun little tidbits, and then we forget to talk about the part that took us the longest and the most excruciating part, which was actually writing the long chapters.
It's because I don't want to think about it.
Know,
I'm like, but the fun extra bite-sized things were my favorite.
Yeah.
But also there's a story we actually wrote in each chapter.
Yeah, we journalistically covered a true crime or paranormal story in each town as well. So we try not to linger on that because it really was a very overwhelming process, but also very cool and felt like very legit when we published it and had actually, written it. So, yeah.
So this time you've got 30 new cities for us. You've fallen in love with all of them on your travels. Was there something you did this time that you had wished you had done the first time?
What a cool question. I think I'm speaking, this is only my opinion, so I don't know I'm not going to speak on Em's behalf. I don't know what our publisher thinks about this, but I think the second book is even more fun and more true to us than the first book. I think only because the first book we were trying to figure out how to turn a podcast into a book, and we're very proud of it. It did great. We're super happy with it, but I think with the second one we were able to tweak it a little bit. So, for example, the chapters have a lot more banter, so there's a lot more interjections and fun tidbits that make it feel a little bit more conversational. So it's more like Em and I are actually chatting about the stories versus just one big chunk of text. So I think that's what I'm proud of for the second book, but they're pretty similar.
They're very similar. The format's the same, but I agree with Christine that in the first one I think we were just trying to figure out how to write a book, and then this time around I think we were either more sleep deprived because we thought we did the thing. We both, I'm diagnosed ADHD. I have taken it upon myself to diagnose Christine as my ADHD buddy.
You inspired me. I got diagnosed too. Don't you worry. It's in the paperwork now.
The second I know that I'm capable of something, I will wait until the very last minute to actually do it. And so now that I know that I can write a book, I was like, okay, well, I can push this off a little bit.
Our attitude was we've done this before. It's fine. We can do it in half the speed.
So I think because we waited longer, we were more sleep deprived to get it done. I think I'm sure people don't want us to say this, but I think we were more brazen or like
slap happy,
like something was in the air when we were writing this one where it just came off more silly. And so at least that's how I take it. They're both, I like this one. I think it's sillier. As I was reading the audiobook portion of it, I was like, I had to re-record because I kept laughing at our own jokes. So.
I was about to say, I think the funniest part is doing the audiobook because with these banter, interjections, we're saying them without the other person present because we're recording in different cities. And so
and without like leading up to the joke, like I'm just saying the punchline and
I don't know
hoping that Christine said it the same way.
I'm like, why did I say that? What does it mean? But so it feels very true to the podcast. Like, what the hell was I even talking about? But somehow it sort of works at the end of the day. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. That was very long-winded.
No, it's perfect because I think that Next Stop really does encapsulate the podcast. It has the feeling of two friends just sitting down and saying like, okay, well, if this was our road trip recommendation to you, hop on in. And I know my co-host would say that dealing with someone with ADHD while trying to get a project done together is also not the easiest when one of us likes to wait until the last minute for everything and the other likes to plan ahead. So.
Just do not speak to our producer or admin because they have to deal with two people who have these neurodivergent tendencies, and they probably want to rip their own hair out.
In some way, Christina, if it back when it was just the two of us, worked like a charm because we both at least understand
chaos.
It's gonna get done. Just like wait until the last minute. It's not that hard. Like just leave us alone until you're so scared.
It'll appear in your inbox. What a fun surprise.
And then we hired people who like have to do their job and they're like, can you email us back, please? God.
They're like, you have to turn on your Slack notifications. We need to get a hold of you.
You literally, did you talk to Eva before?
Yeah, that is the exact.
Eva was on first.
There's truly, you really.
This is an intervention.
That was actually really embarrassing. We've had many actual conversations about me on Slack and how I am not.
Oh my gosh.
Feeling a little attacked, but that was like your psychic. That's crazy.
When I get on the road for work and I'm out and about, I was just in Charlotte last week. The Slack doesn't exist to me anymore.
Yeah.
And that's the point where it's like
exist.
Never does.
20. Yeah. It never existed for you in the first place.
Yeah.
I'm in Charlotte all the time,
Yeah. Right. Yeah, that's what we call it, being in Charlotte. Yeah.
Yeah. Coin something new. So talking about writing the book, getting into it, what was your favorite and least favorite part in the writing experience? I know I have to ask you all the authoring questions.
I love it. We never get to talk about this stuff outside of just chatting with ourselves.
Besides our group chat where we're just going, I hate this.
Yeah.
Well, the thing I hated, I'm so sorry to the people on our book team. I promise the book is lovely, but the thing I hated the most was writing it because it
is beautiful.
Thank you. I've seen so many, I've said this before, but I've seen so many celebrities who wrote a book and then they get interviewed about it on TV and they all say it's the most fun they never want to have again. And that's exactly how it felt where I promise I'm grateful for it, but wow, the burden of it's a massive undertaking and it's very overwhelming. And at the same time, the last thing I ever saw myself being as a writer, and I mean, Christine might have a different story there, but I truly had no plans ever to write more than a sentence after college. And so now I've got 2 books, and every time it's really rewarding once it's done, but getting through it is it's so much more than you think it is. I feel like anytime I think of someone writing a book, I'm like, oh, you just sit down, you write a paragraph here, you write a paragraph there, but it really is, totally takes over your life when you're in the middle of it.
Deadlines, it's edits, it's revisions.
It's then reading the other person's half and then putting your own
marrying them together.
It requires a lot of focus, which I really
focus our favorite thing.
Yes.
I really struggle with that. So that was the worst part, was just generally just writing because I just don't enjoy writing. But the best part was one of my favorite things to do when we're on tour is explore different cities and go to all these weird hidden gems and go to all of kind of the kooky underground places that you don't really see on the top 10 listicles, And so I do that anyway without having the task of writing a book. And so my favorite part was like having an excuse to do the typical kind of like research for a city that I would before I travel there anyway.
That's like how M travels already. So it's sort of like M just takes their itinerary and like plops it into a book.
There were a few cities where I just plopped my notes app from my phone right into the book. So
totally.
That's easily my favorite part.
I love that because I am the one who's like, I'm very comfortable in the hotel. I'm tired from existing. And my teammate who does the majority of our traveling, she builds these beautiful lists, and everyone who joins her on the road she starts like a shared notes app note with them. And so like when we started our tour in Vegas, I was going through and being like, oh, right, we have to go to the haunted museum. We have to go see Bagel Bites. Like, we have to go to like this museum of crime in this place. And we at one point talked about like, should we route to just like different destinations that there are podcast episodes of from different series. We were going to go to Abilene, Texas, because there's like that infamous 911 recording. So all that to say, I very much try to channel UM when I go out onto the road because I will hide in my hotel until I have to be somewhere if left to my own devices.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like every now and then Christine will. There has been a few times, I think it was Minnesota or something. It started with an M. It was one of those where Christine came to my door and went, "What are you doing tonight?" And I was like, "Are you coming with me?" And I was like, and we went on a whole little journey together. Remember
it doesn't happen often. I will say a lot of times M does their own thing, and then we'll come back with all these shopping bags we'll be on our way to the venue, and we're like, come on. And I'm like, let me drop all this off in the hotel room. And it's just like bags of like oddity shops. And it's like, I got you something. And it's like from the Cryptid Museum. And I'm like, where have you been all day? Like, I just woke up an hour ago. I don't even know where you've been all day. So yeah, usually it's a solo experience. And then I kind of just like sit there and bask in M's
and get a bunch of gifts. Yeah.
Get all the treasures.
Presents. Yeah. And I drink wine inside my hotel room. Woe is me. It's a great balance. I think we strike.
Well, Christine, what did you hate about writing? Because you are a writer. Like that was your career path initially.
It was, yeah. And I like to write. I think I have a harder time with. I don't have a hard time with the research. I think it can be very it can kind of limit the flow or like, because I'll be, covering a topic or I've chosen a topic and now it's like, oh my gosh, I have 30 sources. Like, where do I begin to even? And then I get in my head about like, well, I don't want to quote too many sources. I don't want to plagiarize, and you want to make sure you're doing justice to like the victims, the family. You're telling the story as factual as possible. And there's so many blogs out there, you have to be so careful. There are a lot of like obstacles in that sense, but I studied journalism in college, so it's like I feel I have a little bit of an edge there, or at least a little bit of an understanding where I'm more hyper aware of how to find good sources and keep track history of everything. I do like the writing part. I think I'm like any other person who's like, oh God, I got to sit down and write. But I think once I start, I actually do enjoy it, and I think my favorite part is definitely reading M stories and just writing like interjections in because it
feels like yapping.
Because it feels like I'm yapping and making fun of you. And I was a comedy writer before, so it's a little easier to kind of lean into that.
Professional yappers, update the LinkedIn.
Professional yapper. That's pretty good and true. Yeah, so I love the actual writing part, especially when it comes to like writing creatively and stuff. And M sells himself short. M's like one of the funniest people. I'm reading M's like there's barely any edits ever done to M's sections. Like, I'm not kidding. M's a great writer. And I feel like I know you don't like it, but you're very good at it, M. So if that is anything
is possible at the 11th hour.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
I will say I agree with Christine, and I also I sympathize with Christine. I'm very lucky in that my research can be so much broader than Christine's. Christine has like, first of all, actual like victims and witnesses, and there's court documents and police records and all these things where Christine has to be really careful about her research. But a lot of times, if I want to cover like a juicy alien abduction, it's gonna come from like 2 Zanga blogs. So like I just get to say allegedly and I'm fine. So I think my sources are easier, but where I ends up suffering more than I think Christine does is that because I have to interject on her stories, I have to interject on like true crime, like actual like murders
Like
with
find
like really
funny
dark stories
spots that aren't, in reference to the crime. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it flips for us where then Christine has it's harder for her up front where she has to find all these really intense sources and make sure they're all accurate, but then she gets to have more fun interjecting because my
Yes.
stories are usually so
That's
silly
such a
that
good-
there's
That's
no
so wise,
harm.
That's so true. That's such a
You
good
know.
point.
I hadn't thought about that. But like as a listener, you two are both so respectful, and whether it's a conversation on the word spooky, whether it is a conversation on respecting victims and balancing sources. I mean, you both have always started important conversations and done what you thought was kind of best along the way. And I think helped educate a lot of people. How how do you find time to protect your own peace in all of that? Because you put yourselves out there on a massive scale, and then there will always be a comment section.
Mhm.
Wow.
That's true.
I will say I want to also point out, like, people have said, oh, we've learned so much from you, you've educated us, but I think it's also mostly the flip side. Like, we learn so much because we're doing this, and we are encountering, hundreds of thousands of people with like differing viewpoints, and who have either kindly or not so kindly, mostly kindly, redirected us or told us, different vocabulary that we should pay attention to, that kind of thing. So even though it's almost like we're just taking what we learned and kind of helping spread the word.
Definitely.
Yeah. So it's kind of a back and forth, I think, too.
Yeah, we have both made a joint effort to never touch Reddit ever again because
yeah, you have to set boundaries, your personal boundaries, for sure.
It's Zandy's job to keep an eye on that.
It
right,
literally
Christine?
is. I was just telling my therapist, oh, I don't go on Reddit. And she's like, oh, how do you know these things? I was like, I have a little like watchdog who just every now and then pops in and says, hey, like nothing that important, but maybe you want to like look into this. And it's very rare that he thinks it's worth bringing to our attention. But he does like kind of lurk and make sure, there's nothing huge we need to address so that we can protect our sanity.
Yeah, there's it's not fun to be able to Google yourself and just see a bunch of strangers that just have opinions. But luckily, most of the time, it's very lovely, and it's easy to, see the negative comments and like just kind of blow off the really positive ones. But if you add them up, we get significantly
people are mostly
lovely
kind.
comments.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's really helpful. At least it used to be. I would go on Reddit and I would hurt my own feelings. It was then nice. There was always someone in my like DMs or someone to say something encouraging. So I think it's just knowing that it's kind of part of
it's just the nature
world.
of doing this. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think we're very lucky with the people who listen and are like patient and kind with us for the most part.
Also, I always I'm a very big fan of naps, and sometimes if you get your feelings hurt too much, you just take a quick depression nap and it bounce right back. So
absolutely.
I have yet to try that, but I think I might someday.
Oh,
we'll
get
see.
into it. Never underestimate the power of a depression nap.
It's really seductive.
Powerful.
Yeah, I yap and I nap. Like that's
wow,
it.
You're making all sorts of t-shirts today.
Thank you. Feel free to put that in the store when your Etsy's back open.
I will. I'll get you 10%. So
I don't even need it. You can just send one to me.
Happily.
Now, of course, touring has informed the books. Do you have a favorite memory from tour? I'm sure I can think of like least favorite memories of being sick in airports and poor Eva on a plane. But what stands out? What is the thing that when you have that rough day that you go like, oh, this is why I do it?
Oh. Do you have one off the top of your head or not yet? I'm thinking.
Oh, I just feel like, speaking of yapping, I'm aware that I did most of it recently, so I'm trying to let you have your moment.
I'm leaning on you. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, my favorite part really is the traveling. Especially because in one of my if I can toot my own horn for a second, which in this last tour, it was the first time I really could travel and explore as much as I'd like to. In the past, I had way too much anxiety that leaving the hotel was it was a no can do. I was kind of stuck in the hotel. And after doing quite a lot of therapy and finding all the right medications, I feel like a bit more of a normal person. And so I'm able to leave and go on these adventures. I used to kind of like dabble and find one or two things I could do, and that was it. But I'm really going into high gear these days with exploring every city. So whenever I think about tour, I don't get nervous about the tour. I just get overwhelmed with how much time away from home that is. But
Mhm.
then the perk for me is being able to explore different places. And also in a lot of cities we go to, I have friends and family there. So it gives me opportunities to see people I haven't in a long time. So that's my favorite.
That's not my favorite. I don't mind exploring, but I just get so tired. I don't know. I think for me, especially lately, traveling is almost like partially a luxury in that
Mhm.
don't have a 3-year-old or 2.5-year-old like to wake up with, and like be constantly monitoring. So it feels like, I mean, it's definitely a lot of work, sure, but there is something to be said for being in a hotel and being like, oh, I can just lay here and watch TV. Like this is not a thing I can do at home.
Ah,
And so that's kind of my favorite, is like a little bit of a break from the day-to-day routine. And I'm very much, Em and I are very similar in a lot of ways, very different in a lot of ways. I'm more the type where I love like constant change and things. I don't like routine. And so it's kind of a nice way to just like escape from the day-to-day, like,
Just get to
monotony.
rot.
I was
Just to
gonna say,
rot.
yeah, just right. And it's not
rot in a new
monotony
place.
even.
Yeah.
Yeah, rot in a new place. Just like take a little vacay from the stress of like, oh, the cat just threw up in the living room. Just not my problem today, And so it's kind of like I shut off the world. Like you said, Slack just doesn't exist. And so it's like
Mhm.
I just turn off the world for a day or two. And of course, like the actual live shows, like we're with touring, it's like such a small percentage of the actual day of travel.
Yeah.
But once you do it, it's like, wow, there's nerves and everything. But having people clap for you is like the weirdest, trippiest thing. Like you don't
Especially as two people with with childhood abuse,
complexes. Yeah,
with
complexes.
childhood trauma. It's very
Neurotic.
all of a sudden very emotionally validating to have someone actually saying, "Oh, you are loved."
Keep talking. Yeah, it's
Oh
like,
my
what?
gosh, yes.
You want to hear
Very
from
sweet.
me?
It's
Yeah,
it's very
it's very fulfilling.
lovely. And Christine
Mhm.
said there's a lot of nerves before a show, but about 10 minutes in, there's always a moment where I'm sitting on stage and I'm just like, "Oh my God, like I can't believe that this many people actually have heard us talk and thought this is worth my money.
Yeah, I'm gonna pay
I'm doing
money
that
to be
again."
here.
Like
Yeah,
it blows my mind that people are
every
even
time.
enjoy
Like it's
us.
never old.
Yeah, it never
Yeah,
gets old.
yeah.
I totally get it. For truly like the first 5 minutes, I was like, I hear them both talking right now the same way I always do, but this time they're talking to me. And it was just such a trip. And then I'm like, okay, now I'm in it. You're an interviewer. You can do this.
Oh, that's so funny.
You can actually respond and we'll hear you this time.
I know.
Yeah.
I truly, it'll be a listener's story, and I will have my AirPods and I'm like walking around cleaning, and I'm like, that's
You're
right.
like, you
The
pronounced
cowboy
that wrong,
ghost.
Christine.
Like,
Yep, you did that wrong
like I gotta
again.
go comment somewhere.
Go on Reddit,
Yeah, right.
make a few
No.
comments.
Hi, Zandy. Notes for the team.
Yeah, here, tell Christine.
Tell Christine she said this wrong.
Yeah, she knows. Don't worry. I know.
And tell Em I want to watch Charmed with them. Like those are the lists.
I would love
There, there you go. What more do we need?
Right? All right, what are your travel essentials? As a person who's often on planes, the thing I tell everyone is before they're about to go on serious travel is have a moisturizer you can buy in a CVS. Like that is
Love
not
that.
something where you have to find a Sephora or an Ulta, like where you can go where there's one on every corner. Like have one you can be happy with in the bag and
Em's
replace.
backpack has literal, like, what do you call them?
carabiners.
Carabiners.
Well, I'm also gay.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it all kind of melds together, but wow, Em takes it to another level with the carabiners and all the business. I mean, Em has a system.
I do. I carry only a backpack everywhere we go. It's a big ass backpack,
Yeah.
but it's also because I'm responsible for like the stage stuff. So my hands are busy with suitcases, so I
Sure.
have to make it travel on my back. But that's why the carabiners come out, because then what if I go on a shopping spree in Toronto? Oh my God.
And you will.
Where's the
And you
bags
do.
go?
Yeah.
And I do.
Right.
So the carabiners, all of a sudden I look like I'm just like backpacking through Europe or something at the end.
Yeah.
Christine, do you have an answer? Because I do, but I don't want to.
Just of travel essentials. I mean, I
Yeah.
always pack so at one tour date, apparently it was right after COVID, and I guess Willie Nelson had started giving out little
yes.
like gift packages to venues to be like, oh, if you're visiting, bands or touring artists, whoever, like little like care packages sort of. And it was so exciting because we got these like laundry bags and I'd always wanted one. And so I keep like a folded up laundry bag in my suitcase because there's something about coming home and having just a pile of laundry to figure out like what's clean, what's not clean that used to just make my ADHD brain, speaking of, like implode. So having like things built in where I'm like, oh, I just toss it in this bag and, you know, simple, just to simplify the process. You know, I used to use packing cubes and all that. I've kind of given up on that. I will also say on top of like a laundry bag, I also always bring a, you can buy these on Amazon. It's like a padded wine bottle holder. It's like plastic or like a plastic material with foam inside of it. And not only does it keep like a bottle of wine safe for if we're at our venue and they're like, oh, here, there's an extra bottle of wine. I'll just stick it in my suitcase to take home because I'm cheap and I love wine. But it also has a like material in it that absorbs an entire bottle's
like
worth of liquid. So if it breaks in your bag, it'll just go into the, yeah, exactly. So anyway, I bring that along because I'm always like finding random shit to like put in my suitcase. And past, I have been very risky about my behavior with just tossing like glass items, especially filled with red wine, into my suitcase.
Right onto the laptop. Yeah.
Just directly on and just like close it up. So that I highly recommend those. They're very cheap and they're also, you know, great gift ideas. So, you know, if anyone's looking for a way to transport their, or sometimes it's extra wine, like they'll like have a screw top and I'm like, I don't want to throw away a 3/4 bottle of wine.
Yeah.
Who do you think I am? Like, anyway, so
and I can't drink it all right now.
Yeah, I mean, listen, give me a day or two. So anyway, those are my essentials, quote unquote.
And what
So
about you?
A big sanitary napkin for your wine bottle. Okay.
Literally, yes, that's a great way to put it. It's like a
God,
giant
yes.
pad for your wine bottle, and it like keeps it safe. I love it.
Perfect.
Well, I'm no different. Christine obviously loves wine. I love food, so my first essential, I always carry a spork with me.
And for everything.
I love that.
Because the amount of, so we're in, depending on, you know, what's going on. And a lot of times I'll stay in the city after the show, or I'll you know, while I'm near another city, I'll go to another city. So a lot of times the amount of hotels I'm in, it's a lot throughout the year. And the amount of times that you can have food delivered and they don't.
Oh, you're
give
so
give
right.
You nothing. Yeah.
Oh, even I ordered soup one time. I think it was soup or ramen. And then we got the food and there was not a single utensil.
I wish you had a spork.
Oh,
yeah.
well, no, I do. I never even thought to bring a freaking spork. You're changing my life right now.
I truly just ate my Panera salad with my hands in
Yeah,
Charlotte.
we've done that.
Do what you gotta do.
Panera always forgetting the freaking utensils.
Well,
Happens all the time.
At home, I do the like, oh yeah, save the planet. Please don't give me silverware. But then you forget to uncheck it when you're in a random hotel somewhere.
Yes, it's very true.
Yeah,
and they never listen to me home, but
No.
they always listen to me on the road.
Right.
Well, Amazon
incredible.
makes sporks in all colors and all sizes. So
Love.
you can, sometimes I have multiple, so that way I can do the fork part and the knife part at the same time, you know? So I always have a spork in my bag, and I always have a spork in my, if it's cold, like my jacket, because you never know where you're going to end up. And
it's also a good like weapon in case something happens.
Yeah.
True crime ready.
Yeah, that's my mindset.
Then I always bring an external charger on principle, because especially while I'm traveling around, if I don't want to have to, like, there were times where I didn't have an external pack with me, and so I had to go back to the hotel for a while and like charge before I could go back out. The final thing is I always bring a blanket from home, and I always bring a candle from home. So that way
you're like stocked up like a little cozy night.
Well, that way, yeah, because when you're on the road that long, eventually I get homesick. And so it's like, well, now I feel like I'm in my blanket from my bed. The candle smells like my house, and it just kind of makes it more cozy. So, and a lot of times after a show, it's very lovely to do showers by candlelight.
Yes.
Yeah, apparently M does this. I didn't know that this happens on the road, but like
you go on Spotify, you play like some like lo-fi, like some spacey lo-fi, turn off all the lights except the candle, and just rot in the shower. It's lovely.
Yeah. I just listen to the true crime and also do the same thing. So it like still has the same calming effect, but I'm learning at the same time.
Wonderful.
My mind
feeling scared.
My mind is forever changed. A candle in a hotel room.
Okay, but like I worry
Game
about
changer.
that. Like, what if it sets off a fire alarm or something?
Right.
Never has.
And
Never
speaking
has.
of fire alarms, I think of your mother every time I'm in a
Me
hotel
too.
room.
Thank
I'm
you.
so sorry. Like, I pack shirts like this and I pull them off of the hangers because I bring my hangers from home. You never know.
You never know.
And then you're looking for a place to hang them up, and I'm like, don't.
It always feels convenient.
Don't
they
do
put
the
it in
Linda,
the most
but it
convenient
looks so
frickin'
useful.
spot. Those damn sprinklers.
Linda, she has tried every, how Christine's like, I'll just throw like broken glass on my laptop. Like
Yes.
my mother didn't do it before. Like there's the reason that
follow
there
in her
is
footsteps, to be clear. Yeah.
the reason that there's everything padded on Amazon is because my mom has probably broken more things than just a hotel. But
Right.
I'll let her know that she's thought of. That's her only legacy, it seems, these days.
Is sprinkler systems.
Yeah. Good for her.
It's just thousands of dollars of damage for
liability
because she
in a
broke
hotel.
the mercury. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and so this was my first time seeing where they like put cages over them. I always see the signs and I go, thanks, Linda. But the last hotel I was at, there was like a cage around it.
But does the
Just like,
cage hold your hangers? Because that would be so convenient.
I almost put it on it because I was like, but the cage is right here.
Yeah, like
Is
that
it-
shouldn't be a problem. Now you're giving me a solution.
But
You're
there was a
covering it
sign
up.
under the cage, and
Oh, then you get a little tricky. Yeah,
so I
okay.
was like, well, they won't know it's me
They should just
until
put a
you talk
curtain
about
rod
it on
on
a
top
podcast.
of the sprinkler, and then we all will know what to do.
Did it happen to
you.
be a Ramada? Because they're the ones who take my mom's crime quite seriously.
It was not a Ramada.
They're the ones that we're not supposed to name by
they're the ones that I don't think my mom is welcome back for the rest of life.
She is barred.
Oh my God.
Now, of course the listeners are hearing it, but you two are actual friends. At the same time, you work together on everything.
Everything.
Podcast, book, tour. You're doing all of this. You've made kind of a life together that started before you two really knew each other, kind of, and then has evolved into this just family. What is it like to have different projects that you're working on, and how often do you find that you miss each other when you're apart?
Oh, wow.
Not
actually,
really ever.
I have to go cry. Wow. Oh,
just kidding.
okay.
Just kidding.
Well, Christine did move across the country, so maybe that
Yeah,
should give you
she
some
ran far
sign
and
that
fast.
she was done. Man, that's probably the sweetest little question I've ever been asked. Well, I miss Christine right now, but that's also because we haven't seen each other in a while. We do have to have time away from each other, and not in a way where we ever fall out of love with each other. It's just when you spend a lot of time with someone, you just want your own space.
Yeah.
So probably, Christine likes to rot in the hotel room. I like to go out and do things. And then when we're on stage, we hadn't seen each other all day. So it feels like fun.
It's kind of fun. It's like a reunion. There have been times where we haven't seen each other for weeks, and then we get to the venue separately, and then Em's setting up the stage, and then I'll be walking on stage, and we'll be like, "Oh my God, I haven't seen you in weeks," and we'll be in front of a whole crowd, and we're like, "Hi, how are you?" Like it's very strange sometimes.
People think that we're hugging too tight for the show, and it's like, no, I haven't seen her. Everyone's watching me say hi to her for the first time.
How was your flight?
Right.
Yeah.
You're like, this is our hello moment.
Yeah, give us a minute, people.
As people are clapping, because they're like, oh my God, they're hugging. It's like they're actually helping drown out us asking each other, did you get in safe? Are you okay?
Pony is playing, and you're both just like, hey, oh my God, did you have turbulence?
There was one time where Christine, it was both at the same time where your flight was delayed, so you literally came on when we were walking on stage, and then at the same time when we left, you had to catch a red eye. So as soon as we got off the stage, Christine grabbed her suitcase from the stage and went, bye.
I was like, I'm taking an Uber to the airport. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So I basically spent an hour and a half with Christine, and that was all I saw of her.
In California. Yeah, that was a rough time, me travel-wise. I think it's a lot better now. When we first started touring, and we've talked about this so many times, but when we first started touring, we had zero boundaries set personally, professionally, in regards to the podcast, and for me in regards to any part of my life. But I had to very quickly learn the importance of setting some parameters, because our first tour was really hard on our systems, on our friendship, on the podcast. People started noticing, hey, they sound like they don't want to be in a room together anymore. And it's not like that we didn't want to be around each other. It was more just that we were seeing each other every day. What more is there to catch up on or joke about? It felt so exhausting. And we were touring almost, 4 days out of the week. It ended up being totally untenable. There's multiple shows a day.
Nearly a 50 city tour, and so we were on every day was hotel plane show, hotel plane show, or plane hotel show. And so eventually it's like, well, if you don't miss each other, there's nothing to catch up on. So if the whole thing is people like our banter, we got nothing left to banter. So
and we were just so dead. We were so tired. And part of it too is that we didn't know yet how to travel in a more healthy way mentally. And so we would always be sharing a hotel room, and it was M's going to the cryptid museum, Christine wants to sleep in and get room service, and Em stays up late. So it was like we needed to set more structure travel wise, like pick our own flights, but just for whatever's easiest for us.
Yeah.
We ended up like getting our own separate hotel rooms because that's just for our own sanity.
Oh yeah, for a while we were sharing hotel rooms
Mhm.
to save money. Oh wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Worth the money to
Oh,
just
yeah.
have your own space.
Yeah, and like it was fun, but it was fun only for a little bit because then when you're on your like 40th city, you're like, okay, there's no much
Like,
more
get
fun
away from me.
at
I
this
love you, but go
Ramada
away.
Inn. Like I can't say the joke about your mom's sprinkler system again. I've said it 40 times. So at a certain
Right.
point, you just like lose. Yeah, you're like, oh my God. But we've definitely set healthy parameters, I think, where now it's like when we are planning a trip, it's a lot more exciting and fun and more true to ourselves.
Yeah, we felt for a long time like we even had to travel to each city together, and like now all three of us, Eva comes with us, we take our own flights, and it's
For Eva, when we were all three on the same flights, and Eva was always just in the middle, like, so guys, and we're like, it's like
don't
8
talk
in the
to us.
morning. Don't speak to us.
yeah, but also because we also travel in airports differently. We're like one of us wanted to be there super early. I like to be there like
Em
only
has
really
carabiners on every visible surface of their body. Yeah.
yeah. It was a lot of thinking we needed to adjust to each other's routines when it was like, why are we doing this? Let's just all be our own people, and I'll just see you
Yes.
at the venue. It your question on like yeah, well, sorry, I'm thinking back to your question, and
Yeah.
you're right that we really weren't even friends when we first started, and so we're very lucky that this grew into a really solid friendship. I can't imagine there's an alternate world somewhere where we took off and it became super successful, and behind closed doors we actually hate each other and just have to ride this ride. And
then there's your why I left BuzzFeed video 5 years after that
Oh,
kind of thing.
imagine.
Yeah.
Oh, honestly, we might do that just for PR sometime
Yeah.
down the line.
oh,
Just
we
a
could
little
put that out on
stunt.
like an April Fool's. Why I'm
We're
leaving
always
the
joking that we
podcast.
wish we were like interesting enough or dramatic enough for like a podcast version of TMZ to like
Oh my gosh.
investigate, but we just have nothing that dramatic to bring to the table, unfortunately.
Yeah, I like to imagine in a world nowadays, people don't really care about like celebrity magazines, but like if they made a podcast magazine, if we ever got featured, I'd like it to be some like vague, blurry picture of me walking and looking kind of disheveled, and it's like trouble
Like holding
on
a
the
frappuccino.
set, you know?
Yeah.
Trouble on the set, stage door drama. Like, yeah, absolutely.
And a source inside, and it's probably you, Joe. Like a
It's-
source, an inside source tells us.
Eva sent me an email. Here we go, forward.
Christine's walking with her sister and says like gal pal confiding in Christine confides in gal pal about drama. Anyway, so no, I think you mentioned something about like us having separate projects too, and we again are very different in that way. Where Christine was like, I'm not stressed enough. Let's really rattle these bones of mine. And so she decided to do a whole other podcast. For a while, you were doing a YouTube series. For a while, now you're doing Etsy. Like Christine's always got to have a million balls in the air, which that's not shade to you. Like she's always like on.
No, it's
she's
very
always
true.
hustling. But for me, I already mentioned the depression apps. I'm really into doing this one thing that I know I'm having fun with, and I don't really want to do anything else. And so, like, I saw something, this was years and years and years ago, back when I was looking at Reddit, and someone thought that there was going to be this huge crisis that like I was, worried that like, is this podcast over and Christine's moving to the next thing, which I guess is the closest thing to my celebrity magazine moment I'll ever get.
Yeah, you should have
Reddit.
eaten that up.
I know. But I didn't have a gal pal to confide in, so.
Oh no.
But I'm very happy for Christine. As long as she's happy and you're doing your thing, and I am not expected to be on that ride with you, you have fun. But we just operate so differently. So it's weird how we are very similar and how we like, it's similar but so different.
We like
Yeah.
make it work. It's very strange. The balance works out really well at the end of the day. So,
It's so perfect. Now, what also speaks to that is I've kind of been calling them interactions in the book. It's where your beautiful illustrated characters kind of pop up and interject in one another's
Yeah.
stories. You also have QR codes linking out to episodes, of course, fun facts. How did you decide to include these different pieces, and what did you enjoy most about them?
Oh man. I mean, my favorite part is interjecting and interrupting. I think Em probably
Mine
has
too.
a similar. Yeah, isn't it fun?
It's the best.
Especially when like if Em says something and I can just like say something, and I know Em won't even see it till later when we're reading the audiobook or something. I just love those little blurbs and interjections. we have a really great illustrator, Jack, who did the first book too, and just we were like, hey, the cow with the UFO, can you like draw that again? Like he just is like, sure, I'm on it, and is great. But M does most of the like fun facts and all that. M's very good at because we've discussed M's nature of travel, the way that they travel, and M's always been into like Atlas Obscura and that kind of thing. So I think M was very versed in that sort of like tidbit and bite size and fun little inserts. So that's more M's expertise.
Yeah, Christine really thrives with the writing.
Listen, I despite my best efforts, yes, I like it better than the listicles for some reason.
I really like just doing things I can keep my attention, and I don't have a very large attention span, and so things that I thrive in just happen to be more bite-sized. And so that's even why in this book, do I not like writing, but like I really am not a big reader. I don't like dry text. I get very bored very quickly, or my mind wanders. So the irony of me now having 2 books, the only way that was even ever going to happen is I told Christine up front, look, I want to write a book that even I would want to read, and that's going to require bite-sized material. So even if a story has, several documentaries about it from every angle, like we're never going to be able to write that because I wouldn't read it. I wouldn't be able to focus. So we're just going to have to do just like really good, like small chunks of a story. And then if people are interested, we can always put a QR code in the book to have people go listen to the story and get all the details. So
yeah, we wanted it to be a book where people could just have it on the shelf or on the table or like on the toilet. I don't know. Listen, I don't judge. And just like flip through and be like, huh, interesting, and just flip through and not feel like, oh, you have to sit there and go all the way through. We both came to that compromise. It's not really a compromise because I was in agreement, but kind of mentioned that I was like, yeah, that's way more true to not only you, but both of us to have a book that's just like kind of all over the place, not all over the place in a bad way, but just, more person, different stories and different segments and sections and pictures. And when M said that, I was like, you know what? Yeah, I think that's probably why we're also so proud of it is like, oh, it does feel like something we would read and buy and, stand behind. So
definitely. Yeah. I was so excited. This is where I'll throw more Ohio at you, Christine. I bought the first book at oh my gosh, the Book Loft in German Village in Columbus. So I was traveling through and I was like, oh, this feels right. And then I was like, no, one of them is an Ohio author. You need to move this up.
Thank you.
Yes.
My bookstore never has them. And I'm like, hey, but I'm like way too chicken to actually say anything. So
thankfully they had quite a few, but I was just like, put these in a section. You've got all these sections around, put them somewhere.
Oh, please. Come on.
Now the art, you mentioned Jack. What drew you to their style? Or how did you choose their work?
Oh, man. We got a few like portfolios and they all were amazing. And we were like, honestly, any of these, like we're not artists, right? So we're like, any of these are going to be next level, top notch. Or publishers, Andrews McMeel are like, they know and Charlie, our publisher, was a listener too. So she knows like the vibe. And we basically gave the instruction of like creepy, but quirky, like cute, creepy, but
we always described it as Scooby-Doo, like cute
Scooby-Doo-esque. Yeah,
1,000%.
Exactly.
Cute,
exactly.
spooky.
And something about the way that Jack just I think you said this, Em, like wasn't his submission, like his primary submission to us as an example, like the UFO beaming up a cow, and we were like, okay.
Like, oh, you get it.
I was like,
you
that's silly. I was like, I could see that on a pin. I could see
What's that about?
It was just weird, and it was weird but very cute and spooky all at the same time. So that was kind of
like, okay, yeah, you get it.
I remember loving it so much. We even told Jack at somewhere in the book, in the first book that we did, where it was like somewhere in there you have to put this exact picture in the book. One. So if you find the UFO beaming up a cow, that was
I'm pretty sure we added to the
resume.
Second as well. I'm pretty sure we insisted it be also somewhere in the second.
I think it'll be in this book too, for sure. I think it is.
I love it. Now, and so it was very natural to just keep the same artist. It fit so well, and
I was very, very happy he wanted to work with us again because I don't know what his experience was like on his end, but we were very happy with what he did.
How long did each of you take on your portions to put the book together? How long were you working on Next Stop?
it feels like a fugue state. Like I enter a fugue state because
Yeah.
I feel like I don't even totally know. I remember with the first book, I was very aware because I was pregnant and I had a due date, and I was like, I
A
need to
literal
get this
due date.
a literal due date on top of the book's due date. So I was like, I'm getting this done before that, and so that was a very motivating factor.
Yeah.
With this one, it does feel like you just kind of. I mean, I would say several months, definitely,
Mhm.
like several months, and it'd be like, oh, revisions due in like 2 months, and so it was like, okay, I would just, put a chunk of time somewhere in the calendar to be like, these are my book days. But I would say definitely months of work. Is that right, Em?
I think I also it becomes such a blur. I it was really
And I think for both of us,
I
it's
couldn't
a
tell
lot of
you.
it is in the middle of the night, and we kind of lose like time. Time and Slack no longer exist in the
Yep.
middle of the night. So I think a lot of it is like I don't know what time I was up till working on that.
I would say at least 2 3 months, 2 3 months.
Yeah, I would say
But
2 months.
that's also in that it doesn't seem like a lot when you think of like 2 or 3 months to write 30 cities. Like, what are you doing that whole time? But it really, like, the amount of research that goes into it on both ends. And
Yeah.
Well, and then we're also doing the podcast during working hours and other
yeah,
stuff.
it's never just like it's not just like a streamlined writing a book. It's like woven into everything else we're up to behind the scenes. But
Right.
but I remember it's doing a lot of research, which is already a lot. Then it's like essentially breaking those into notes that we would write for a podcast episode and then turning them into, I mean, I don't know if Christine does this. I'm sure there's a more like streamlined way, but it felt like multiple steps of doing the research, getting it all down in one document, then writing notes, then turning that into like a story version, like writing it in paragraphs, then making it funny because you have to make it funny. Like it was almost every chapter you were writing it probably 4 or 5 times. And then once we had to send them in for like, we had to send them into our team.
Revisions.
They always came back and there were either notes or edits. So you ended up writing the same chapter a million times. So it weirdly does take a lot longer than you would think.
Yeah.
Definitely feels like it. And now some quick podcast questions, or podcast adjacent. You have a long history with ghost hunting that you've of course welcomed Christine into.
Thank you.
What is something you would think any would-be ghost hunter should have in their kit?
Okay.
A candle and a cozy blanket.
A candle and a cozy blanket, and you're done.
Certainly a cozy blanket. Well, let me think.
Mine still stand, the laundry bag and the wine bottle holder, because you never
Honestly.
know. And I bring them to every ghost hunt too.
Let me think. Well, I think it's funny that a lot of things I thought that were super necessary for our kit end up being the things that like either don't work or you know what? Let me re-say that. And that like a lot of the things that are usually in our kit, when I'm just going ghost hunting when I was in college and like my whole job was to just go ghost hunting and it wasn't about like footage or getting content for a tour, I would use different equipment versus now I actively try to stay with equipment that's very visual and like going to work for the show. For those who are new here, our tour is us showing footage of us going ghost hunting together. So I feel like there's some equipment that works really well, but it's just not visually, fun. And so now we work with a lot of things with lights or with sound or things that are really light and hopefully a ghost would like smack and it would move. Right. And at the same time, there's equipment that is like all the most expensive pieces, and they say it's like, the piece of equipment you have to have, and it really didn't do all that much. So, one of the things that we first said in our very first tour where we would show ghost hunting footage is that we just got motion sensors from like Target, and so and they work so much better than
and
some
that was
of the
one
like,
of the most like
equipment.
effective and creepy. Like you could have a full on conversation and do yes no, with that. And at first Em was like, I was like, what is that? Like it's just a thing you hear at the gas station, like ding dong. But it, we used it in a boiler room of a ship, and suddenly it is the creepiest effing thing you've ever heard.
Yeah.
So there's simple.
You can do
stuff
it on
like
a
that.
budget. You can just go to Target and get some like nighttime motion sensors, and you'll get footage.
And
but
I think like when we first started doing it, sorry to interrupt him, I know this is your forte, but one thing I want to add too is like even just having your phone. Like nowadays, your phone can do like if you just take photos. Like it's the number of people who are able to send in creepy photos now from like ghost tours they go on. Yeah. It's just so cool that you can do a live, photo from your iPhone and have a strange phenomenon happening. So even if you don't have time to like go get equipment or whatever, even just filming, taking photos, recording, I feel like I'm always surprised how many people get cool anomalies or like creepy outlines or silhouettes, things like that.
Yeah.
And I think they even have like little spirit box apps you can download now. I don't know how well those work, but stuff like that you can always access from your phone too, which makes it really easy.
Yeah. And I would say, and also answer yourself, Christine, because I know you know all the equipment too. I would say I really like the Spirit Box these days. I went through a REM pod phase, and now I feel like I'm leaning into the Spirit Box more.
Like,
Really
dowsing rods, they're easy to pack, and except TSA does not love them. They think they're yard stakes, like for a sign. I found that out the hard way. So like maybe put them in with your wine bottle in the foam insulation. Just a tip,
TSA also doesn't like decks of playing cards and
oh yeah, they're weird about
like
a lot
that,
of shit. That's so true.
They're
like,
fine
we don't
with the
allow
spork. Don't worry.
Yeah, they like the spork.
All that
Okay, as long as we can keep the spork on our person, then I'm happy.
Yeah.
Then we're in the clear. Now, of course, you have, and that's why we drank. And then you recently, within the last few years, introduced Ritual, a Spotify exclusive. And then, Christine, you also have Beach Too Sandy. Would you like to take a moment to talk about Beach Too Sandy?
Sure, I would love to. We just wrapped up our summer tour, which means that the And That's Why We Drink tour is coming up because I never stop leaving my house forever. No, so I have a podcast with my brother where we read 1-star reviews from the internet, and we read them in a dramatic fashion and put music underneath to really amplify the like Karen-ness of the reviews. And that's just a flat out comedy podcast. So it's a little bit of a break from some of the darker stuff we talk about on And That's Why We Drink. But yeah, that one's a fun little I don't know, a plot twist in my career path, I guess.
On the bookish side, it's always fun to turn to Goodreads and see what's on your TBR and look at those 1-star reviews too.
I know. Oh, you know what? We've done a few. We did one of smut, reviews of smut, and that was very, very fun. I think we've done a library one, but that was ages ago. So we got to get back on our game. And it is always sad to read 1-stars of library. So sometimes we're like, no,
that's not as feel good.
Yeah, it's not as feel good. So, we try to find just the goofier, more ridiculous ones rather than like turning it into a negative topic. But yes, the book ones are some of my favorites. Yeah.
Now, speaking of libraries, do either of you have a memory of your library current or as a child that just stands out to you that you'd like to share?
I do.
Okay, go for it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I don't even know if this has any, I've never put words to it, but when I was about 3 and I was just starting to form memories, no big deal. I remember my mom taking me downtown Cincinnati, and we went into the main public library branch. And I remember she was looking for a specific book, and she let me just sit in the kids section for like 45 minutes while she talked with the librarian. And there's something so visceral about like taking the stairs up, finding this like children's, and it felt, at least in the 90s, this would have been like 93, 94, so eye-opening that there's just this place and I could read any book and look at any book I wanted and had free reign to just wander around. And I mean, there was something so like mind-boggling about it when I was 3. Still, that building has other like offices inside it. If I ever go in there, it's rare, but the smell of it like hits me like a ton of bricks because I'm like, whoa, that's nostalgic. And we only went there a few times because it was downtown, but and we didn't live downtown, but there's something about that big downtown library where I just wandered in. My eyes were probably, size of saucers. And there was something so, and now like when I had my daughter, one of the most excited parts about it for me was taking her to the library. We go to story time like 3 times a week, practically. That they're free and they don't even check your library card. You just go in and they do songs and crafts and coloring, and she's always coming home with artwork. And I mean, I'm a huge library fanatic, really. So
I love it.
I just love them. I love them. And I hope one day Leona can be like, oh, I remember, going to the library, and now they have like computers with stuff on it. And I'm like, that's all over my head. But still really, really cool. I love the library.
I remember when my mom would take me to the library when I was a kid, they had a section where I think the librarian was trying to bring more kids in and had a section that was almost like a in hindsight, it was only arts and crafts, but as a kid, it felt like I went to like the space museum. Like it just felt like there was like a whole science section
like
for you to like
interactive.
get your hands dirty and stuff. So I remember really digging that. Remember I actually went to the library the most in high school when I was dating a boy.
Whoa.
And
Whoa.
I know.
Trigger warning.
I know. I know. And it was like our thing where this sounds like I'm my grandmother. We would go to the soda shop. We literally have a soda shop in my old town. We would get a cherry Coke and we would go to the library and we would
That's adorable though.
And we would climb up the stairs and you would get this like really nice view of the whole town. Always sitting in there, and all the books were actually like, it was like in the psychology section. And so that was when I decided I wanted to like go to school for psychology. I remember like seeing all the books and thinking they were really interesting. That's like my favorite memory of a library is the cherry Cokes and looking at the view.
Aww.
So yeah.
Both of your memories are just, it's so perfect. Like beautiful. And Christine getting to share with your daughter, Em just having like this vision of, this is where I started to, like, this is the moment I started to map out my life. Like,
and can I tell you one quick note, which I just discovered is my mom just sent me a photo because today she had her U.S. citizenship test, fun fact, to become a U.S. citizen. And she sent me a picture and said, I passed. And it's the building downtown next to the library. And we never go down there. So this feels very,
what a moment.
Perfect. She passed. Yay.
Yay.
Oh, yay. Yay to your mom. That's so exciting.
Now she gets to vote. Woohoo.
Good. We need all the help
in
we
Ohio.
can.
Yeah. She was like, fine, I'll do it.
She's like, I guess it's about time.
It's time. Yeah.
Well, this is also the moment where I remind everyone to check out their library, that they are so much more than books.
Yes.
It's access to information. It's community space. From books and movies, you can also borrow tools, 3D printers, sewing machines. At Los Angeles Public Library, there are resources to preserve family memories with the Memory Lab. You can borrow tech like laptops and hotspots. The Octavia Lab is a makerspace dream. You can also borrow tools like pressure washers in LA.
Yes, I've gone to I've gone to the library and rented construction equipment.
No.
There's like hardcore stuff.
Yeah. It's like power sanders and everything.
They're very trusting down there, huh? I'm like, nobody should give me a power sander, but that's very cool.
They have it all.
There's also resources for new Americans, health services, and help for the unhoused. Christine, in Cincinnati, you can borrow museum passes. There's also a makerspace. Families can find meal assistance, and as always, so much more. Just a plug for libraries to go with that.
Please, I love a library plug.
Now, I know we are running out of time, but as we start to wind down, I don't want to leave either of you, but is there anything you'd like to make sure that listeners take away from A Haunted Road Atlas Next Stop?
I mean, listen, if you're listening to this, you can write a book, because we for sure didn't think we could write a book.
That's a great message to end on.
As people who, and the fact that our first book, like, I'm not saying this just to say it, but it was a New York Times bestseller, and our manager and our agent called and said they were very surprised that it was a New York Times bestseller, and we were like, no, us too. So it feels so rote and silly, but like, genuinely, if this is something you want to do, you want to write, like, there's so much more access nowadays. Speaking of libraries and places where you can, free software, just even anyway, there's so many ways and avenues now to be heard in different ways. So for me, I just always am, when people are like, wow, that's so impressive, I'm like, I mean, I guess, but I think anybody can really do it, like, if they, about whatever topic fascinates them. So
I'll branch off and say, even if you don't want to, you can still do it.
Yeah, if for some reason you want to do something you hate,
if for some reason the opportunity arises and you do things for the plot, you are able to do it. So yeah.
And then, of course, where can the listeners find you both online?
At and that's why we drink.com. You can listen to our podcast anywhere where you get podcasts. Our social medias are WWD podcast, but then Christina's Xteen Schiefer. I'm the Schulz. And our book, you can also get our book on our website. You can get our other book on our website. And we're on tour right now. We're about to go on tour. So you can go to our website for that.
You want to see those motion detectors from Target in action, know?
And then you can also submit your own listener stories. We put out a listeners episode on the first of every month. So if you've got a true crime or paranormal story you'd like to share, you can submit it also at our website.
Yeah.
Well, Christine, thank you so much for being here today.
This
Thank you.
was so fun. And thank you for asking like fun and creative questions and
That was like
bringing up
the best interview.
Readers can sample and borrow the titles mentioned in today's episode in the Libbyapp. Our library friends can purchase those titles in Marketplace. Professional Book Nerds is proud to be an Evergreen Podcast signature program. To learn about other Evergreen podcasts, visit evergreenpodcasts.com. Our podcast is produced and recorded by me, Joe Skelly, and edited by Joe Skelly and Andrew Alonso. The podcast is presented by OverDrive. To learn more, visit professionalbooknerds.com. Happy reading!